Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TouchLine Banter. I'm one of your hosts, Ruben Dario Chavez Jr., also known as Ray Chavo, and here with me, my co-host, Cheyenne Karimi. Cheyenne, are you pumped to get into talking about some footy?
Always pumped to get into talking about footy. We had some great games, especially in the Premier League and in the Champions League as well. You know, we're going to talk about it, but the Arsenal City game, it really brought me back to like old school football. I love that. The rivalry, pound for pound, two of the best teams going at it. It's amazing. We got a lot to break down, and it's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pumped as well. We didn't get to preview that game, but we're going to do a deep dive. So just so people know for this episode, we're doing something a bit different, and it's something that we might do in circumstances where there's a big match. Let's say there's an El Clasico or something, or a top of the table clash in the Premier League that might decide a title or something that we think has outside importance. We'll do a deep dive on that game and then maybe just quick hits on the other one. So for this week, we're going to talk about some of the Champions League results that we felt stuck out and were important to mention. And then we're going to just deep dive on the Manchester City Arsenal game, and maybe I'll give you guys an update on what happened on the weekend in the Prem if you didn't really see it, like just quick hits. But that's kind of be the outline of the show. So let's start off with it. Bayern blitz Dinamo Zagreb 9-2. I don't have much to say about this game in terms of because it didn't feel like it's weird. You see 9-2 and you're like, oh, Bayern just dominated the whole way. But at one point the score was 3-2. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. Yeah, like Zagreb was like in it, even though like it ended 9-2. Like,
yeah. So I saw a lot of people kind of being like, "Oh, like is Bayern back?" I don't know how you feel about it, but I really feel like Harry Kane had a quote that I think encapsulates how I feel, and he was kind of like, "Well, we won't get away with defending like we did today against teams that are better," and that may seem a bit dismissive, but the problems last year was Bayern was weak at the back, and I don't think they've fixed that at all. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think they're still in a quote unquote transitional phase. Like they're in like the retool rather than rebuild, kind of taking like an American sports analogy. I do agree with you. Yeah, the defending has been poor for a while. Like they're sticking with Kim Min-jae in the lineup, and he was an absolute stalwart at Napoli, but for some reason he just hasn't really hit the ground running at Bayern. I like Company as a coach overall. I mean, I was surprised that he took a huge leap over from Burnley and went to Bayern. I think he is a tactically adept player, and he was a great center back. I think he's one of the best center backs in the Premier League, and he's played in multiple different systems, and he's won so many titles. And the team looks good. I mean, it's set up usually the way it does. I know that he is relying a lot more on Olise now, and it was their big signing of the summer, and he is playing Olise a lot on the right side. But again, I mean, shout out to Zagreb. Love the city, love Croatia, Luka Modric, Real Madrid legend. But yeah, even though they were in it, I guess they just kind of fell apart. And I agree with Harry Kane's quote that once Bayern meets up against the quote unquote heavy hitters or powerhouses of the Champions League, you cannot defend like that. And I don't know if I really trust if Upamecano and Kim Min-jae are a starting center back pairing for Bayern, for example against Real Madrid. Oh, I'm why getting my hands ready to absolutely obliterate that defense, because everything else looks good. Everything else, attacking ways, they look good, but on the defense, concern still.
Absolutely. And maybe we'll break their next game down when it comes to on our next episode, depending on when we record it, or maybe we'll be breaking it down after the fact. But they do play Aston Villa next, not this week because there's no Champions League this week, but the week that's coming up, they are, I think, away to Villa Park. We can touch on the Real Madrid and Barcelona games. I will say, told you I wasn't scared of Barcelona. Look what happens. Hey, I will start with them because I like to be a hater, and it's very early on, so I'll get some hate out now. It's different playing in Europe. It's different when the decisions don't go your way, and Barcelona fans can get mad at me, and people can say that I'm biased, but we know what's happening with the Nogueira case. Me and Shine have been Real Madrid fans for a long time. We've seen some of the controversial decisions that have happened in El Clasicos, in games where Barcelona play. And if people want to say that it happens to Real Madrid too, sure. But I remember when they introduced VAR, a lot of Barcelona fans were like, oh, well, no more Real Madrid winning the Champions League because now they won't be able to cheat. We've won 2 since the introduction of VAR. They still haven't won any. So you can take that for what you will. Eric Garcia is an idiot. uh, Ten Hag shouldn't have passed the ball, but like it was like, yeah, they don't look as formidable as people wanted them to look. That's what I took away from the game, at least.
I was surprised how poor they looked. Like, yeah, and for all the credit, like we gave Hansi Flick in the first few like times that Barcelona was doing well, this was an odd bit of a lineup like going into the game. I mean, like I guess they had to like shuffle the lineup a little bit, give players some rest. But why is Eric Garcia a Barcelona player? Eric Garcia is not a Barcelona player, and I think that really like shows the difference in level in Real Madrid and Barcelona when it's you see the type of players that can come off the bench for Real Madrid when you have like Camavinga or Brahim Diaz or anyone else that you can think of, and Eric Garcia in midfield, really, like
Yeah,
that's what Hansi Flick went with, and I mean he made a stupid decision, and absolutely that is a red card. And credit to Monaco for playing well, and just insult to injury for Barcelona. Excuse the pun, but Ter Stegen now out for a good chunk of the season. That is huge, huge. Because I think Ter Stegen, even though I'm not, we don't really like Barcelona, I do rate Ter Stegen a lot, especially for the German national team. I mean, I have the opinion he should be starting ahead of Neuer, but that's a different conversation. That's a lot. Huge list of injuries now. Gavi, Dani Olmo now, Ter Stegen, Christensen, a few
Araujo's
other
still
people.
not back. Yeah,
Araujo is still not back. Yeah, so the injuries are piling up. They look good in La Liga, but again, I think you hit the nail on the head there. When you get into the Champions League and it's just not the long league game, and you're not playing the likes of like Deportivo La Coruña or whoever, some bottom of the league team or something like that. You can get results that you don't expect, and you can get teams playing really really hard against you. And this is chances. This is like why this bigger Champions League format in a way can be a good thing, because more teams are involved. Not that Monaco hasn't been involved before, but now the quote unquote league format makes winning your individual games in the early stage more important. So especially when they saw that red card, I saw Monaco would say, okay, we're going for it.
Yeah,
no messing around.
for sure. One thing before I move on to the next game, I will give credit. Lamine Yamal's a baller. That goal that he scored kind of created it out of nothing. That's his signature move. He'll like shift the ball, get a bit of space, and just it's great. It's great. He's phenomenal. I really hope that Barcelona take care of that kid, because I don't want him to be injured as much as like Gavi or Pedri or Ansu Fati has been. What's great, talking about one last shot at Barcelona, I can't help it. Talking about who they can bring off the bench, Ansu Fati got brought off as a sub in this game, and I honestly forgot he went back from Brighton. I'm like, he couldn't hack it at Brighton, and he's being subbed on to a Champions League game where they're down 2-1 trying to chase a result. That's all I have to say about that. On the Madrid side, Stuttgart played pretty well. Like, they threatened, and I think in the first half you could easily say that Madrid deserved to be down, but the attack came together and we got some goals.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to like message you in this game because like I was kind of watching it like on the way to work. Don't do that. Don't watch games and drive. I'm not advocating that. I just incriminated myself. But this team does frustrate me sometimes, and it happened a lot the past few seasons. And in the first half, I wanted to message you and be like, man, this team, like, what is going on? Like, I get it. Like, we don't have Cruz, but it was a much stronger lineup than I would have thought of. Bellingham was playing, Valverde was playing, Tchouaméni was playing as well. And I'm like, credit to Stuttgart. They got into the Champions League this season. They weren't doing that well, but the season before they did really great in the Bundesliga, and they played really, really well. And if it wasn't for the post and Courtois, we should have been 2-0 down, in my opinion. And just being a Real Madrid fan and the past few years in the Champions League and other results, I always hold judgment until the final whistle. Anybody else in like whatever game it is, I remember like being at a bar in the group stage Liverpool game when Liverpool goes up 2-0, and somebody were like, "Oh yeah, how does that feel?" Like they're coming back for those Champions League finals you won, and I'm like, just wait. Let's wait till the final whistle. Hold judgment. And again, the attack came through, and they relied on the individual talent, which Real Madrid does a lot, and they did in the past few seasons. The formula is, sometimes suffer a lot, soak up a lot of pressure, concede chances, and luck favors. What's the quote? The fortune
luck favors the bold, or fortune favors the bold. Fortune
favors the bold. Yeah. So a lot of times they're bold, and they'll soak up pressure and they'll let the opposition attack. It was a little frustrating to watch in the first half, but right away, a minute in, beautiful pass, finds Rodrigo, scores, back into it. And, credit to Stuttgart, they came back into the game. It was a lot closer of a game than I thought it should have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a frustrating performance for me, but again, yeah, I think I was gonna harp again and say, oh my god, we miss Cruz, we miss prime Modric. But when I think about it, we did have these performances with Cruz and with Modric in the team where you'd let another team that you should be beating score or get a lot of chances, and you pull off the win. Because it doesn't matter at the end of the day if you get a win 2-1, 1-0. The win's the important thing. So Real Madrid does it, and that's how they do it.
Yeah, I agree. The game was a bit frustrating. I think the defense has been just a bit leaky. We're not going to talk about it, but even the game yesterday where they were up 3-0 and then let 2 goals in, the defense has been a bit suspect. And I think part of that is the transition. We're getting hit on the break because we push so much forward. The only reason why I'm not scared long term is honestly Courtois is amazing and he's good. I'm going to flip what I said about Haaland. If Haaland starts every game for Man City a goal up, Courtois takes away at least a goal from the other team. He's good to save a clear chance almost every game. So I think that once the attack starts to click, we're just going to start blitzing teams. And then again, I'm with you. I don't care if we win 5-3, 5-1, 5-2, 5-4, as long as we win. That's what matters to me. So it may make for a tougher viewing experience. It may make me frustrated at times when it comes to defensive effort. And yeah, just we just can't afford to waste chances. And I think sometimes they did in that game. And sometimes Stuttgart were able to impress themselves on the game more than I would have liked. But like you said, they won. So we talked about how important it is to just win these games, and they did win. So can't be too mad at Real Madrid. You mentioned Liverpool. They also played. That was the last Champions League game we wanted to touch on. For what it's worth, Atalanta drew Arsenal and Manchester City drew Inter. But again, since we're deep diving on them, maybe some of those the things we would have said for those games will carry over to what's going to be said about that game. So we're just going to lump those all together in a way. But I wanted to nod to those results since they were big games. But Liverpool 3-1 win over Milan. It didn't start well. Christian Pulisic, Captain America himself, balling on the big stage. But yeah, and they settled it. And Szoboszlai and all the talent that exists on Liverpool's team came through. So how are you feeling? Because we were skeptical of Liverpool at the beginning of the year, and then we said that maybe they could make a push for the title, and they lost to Nottingham Forest, and now they look unbeatable again. So what do you make of this Liverpool team?
Yeah, let's just not say too much. They're good. They're good. We don't know. Let's just stay on the fence as much as possible so we don't jinx them as much as we did against Forest. Before I go into this one quickly, I'm very sorry to anybody who I recommend to watch Inter versus Man City. My God, that was a snooze fest. Yeah. Holy, wow, terrible game. Anyway, this one, interesting. Yeah, Liverpool looks great again, and I have a couple people who I follow on Instagram who are AC Milan fans, and they were posting some reels and stuff, and they were pissed. They were absolutely pissed. Again, a lot of players going to sleep for AC Milan. Theo Hernandez, again, didn't really have a great game. Rafael Leao, I can't find him. A lot of times in the game, he goes missing, has spurts of good performances, but this was in the San Siro. You go up 1-0. Christian Pulisic is your big star signing from a few years ago. Captain America, just like you said. I was really surprised how much they let Liverpool into the game. And credit to Liverpool for playing so well. They got a lot of great goals. Worked off of set pieces, and this, AC Milan fans are haunted by that 3-0 comeback. So it seems like every single time they play Liverpool, there's going to be a comeback against them. But I think Milan can play better than this. I don't know if they will. I think they've been struggling for a little bit, and they might need to offload some of the players who have really high transfer values and kind of just get a fresh faces in. But when I look at the game, I just think Liverpool is just a tier above of AC Milan, and they should win this game, which they did.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Milan can definitely play better, evidenced by the fact that they beat Inter 2-1 just this past weekend in the Milan derby. So, it was a pretty weak performance, and like you said, I think you nailed it. Leao, I think people keep touting him to be this guy that's going to be a star and really incisive, but the Euros, he was kind of hit or miss. He's been hit or miss for Milan a lot of the times. And yeah, you kind of want the best players to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. And he seems to struggle to do so more often than not. And that puts them in these tough spots because, like, you obviously can't really sub him off or replace him. You don't really have anybody that theoretically is on that level. But to let yourself get overturned at home is never really a good sign, especially when you take a lead so early. But I do expect Milan will be one of the 16 teams to make it to the potential of going to the next round. I don't think they'll be top 8, but they could make the next 8 and play in the playoff. And then
I agree.
All bets are off for there. But Liverpool took care of business. They definitely look a lot better than they did against Nottingham Forest. So that's good. Yeah, so I guess we'll go over to the Premier League side of it all now, since we've talked about the Champions League a bit. The only results that I wanted to talk about before we get into the Arsenal City, just quickly, Liverpool won. They're still rolling, like we mentioned, so good for them. Chelsea beat West Ham 3-0, so big win for Maresca. Julian Lopetegui in the hot seat. Speaking as a Madrid fan, that's not surprising to see. He does find himself there quite often, but West Ham should be a little patient, give them a chance to kind of settle in there maybe. And then United drew with Palace away. The Ten Hag seat only gets hotter as it passes. But
United fans, you're lucky. We're not going to bash Ten Hag on this one.
No, there's no Ten Hag.
Don't save that for next week when you lose.
Yeah. I don't know who you're playing, but you'll probably lose.
Yeah.
But we wanted to talk about the massive game. It was Manchester City versus Arsenal. It was at the Etihad, and it was a 2-2 draw. It was a tale of two halves, if there's ever been a tale of two halves. To give the cliff notes, right? Like, Arsenal looked like they were on the route to a pretty incredible victory because they opened the scoring. They got another set piece goal from Gabriel, which, like, that's just, I mean, if you're
the Michael
betting
Jordan of the Premier League, like, how high does he jump?
Well, and also we'll get into that when we break down the game. But the fact that, like, the set piece right before it, they basically did the exact same move.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work because he couldn't get his head on the ball quite cleanly. And then it just works the next time. Saka's incredible at, like, a corner. He's incredible. So, but yeah, so I misspoke. Erling Haaland opened the scoring pretty quickly. Arsenal tied it with a lovely goal from Calafiori, actually, which, like, I heard the commentary be like, "Do you think he meant it?" And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. He's gonna always say he meant it from this point on. You'll claim credit for that forever. And then the set piece with Gabriel. There was controversy with Trossard being sent off. I don't think so much controversy for the second card. We'll break that down, but it's just the first card that led to this. It's a whole thing. Controversy with Doku not being shown a card. And then the second half where Arsenal basically went prime Mourinho. Just, we are not offering anything.
Loved it.
It was not just park the bus. You park the bus in front of another bus that's beside a train. Like, it's
the parking lot of the station.
It wasn't moving. You couldn't budget. And it looked like they were so close to getting over the line. John Stones kind of ruins that. It was a goal mouth scramble, but he was able to get it in there. 2-2 draw at the Etihad. I'll leave the floor to you. I mean, what do you want to talk about first? There's so much to talk about in this game.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, and that's why we decided to do a deep dive on this. There's so many layers to break down. First of all, I loved this game because it was, like, we love the Premier League. We are Real Madrid fans, but we both love the Premier League, and we grew up on, like, the Ronaldo Manchester United days, Thierry Henry Arsenal, like those rivalries where they absolutely hated each other. Like, Gary Neville doesn't dare turn his head in the tunnel because Vieira is going to throw like a hair dryer at him. Like, the past few times between, like, City and Arsenal, and, like, football purists have been like, oh, it's been chess match. It's been a snooze fest. It's been a damn snooze fest. It sucked. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent. I'm going to try and keep it as minimal as I can. This game was the complete, like, antithesis basically of what pure and good, like, shithousery Premier League rivalry football can be unlike what Pep Guardiola has created in football. And this is when I say, and I think a lot of Real Madrid fans will say, and other people who don't like Pep will say, is why he has ruined football. Because his system is copied to an extent so much around the world. And you see, like, basically Arteta plays basically the same thing. And Klopp, he does gegenpressing, but it's kind of similar. But, even companies playing kind of the similar football at Bayern Munich. So he creates, like, these systems where you have to find cogs for players, and he takes out the individual creativity. He wants, system players in a systematic, scheme that works. And then the system works so well. Yes, of course, it's you kind of say, like, if you don't bring other teams down that are so good to a lower level, other teams need to reach their level. But it's like when the Premier League becomes this, unlikable, boring city year after year after year, you just know they're going to win. I didn't really tune into a lot of the big games because I was like, yeah, okay, it's a derby, and we're excited to see what happens. But City's gonna hit form from January to like April or whatever, like they always do, and they're just gonna win the Premier League all over again. And credit to Klopp and Liverpool, because one thing that Arsenal didn't do, even though they almost won the game, was that they didn't play the way they usually do. What I thought Arsenal would have to do to win this game going into it would be that you cannot change your style against Pep. Don't give them a lot more of the ball if you don't normally do that. And that's what Klopp didn't do. Klopp would play that gegenpressing counter-attack style and use the pace of Salah and Diaz on the wings and hit him. And they had to do the unthinkable and win basically almost every single game to finally beat City. And that's why it's frustrating. And that's why I have that sentiment of Pep has almost ruined football, because there's really not any competition, especially in the Premier League. There's not a lot of individual creativity from players. We don't have these beefs and rivalries like we used to. And this game, it gave me so much of that vibe. I mean, like, first few minutes into it, you see Havertz basically 2-foot Rodri. Like, let's go. Like, that is what I'm talking about. And like, once Arsenal, like, it was just, with one lapse of, like, judgment, and you see Haaland go through and he scores and absolutely slots it, gets his 100th goal, and we've praised Haaland so much. But when Arsenal got back into the game, like, it literally started giving me vibes of the Rocky movies, like kind of in like Rocky 2 when he's facing Apollo and he's getting beaten up the first few rounds. But then when he starts laying his punches and the music starts getting more hype, and you're like, okay, now we got to fight. Now we got a rivalry. And this is what I loved about it. And I was like, we need more of this. We need a lot of this, because like back in the day, like, for example, like Chelsea versus what do you call it? Tottenham was a great derby that you'd watch so much and stuff, but now it's become so-called tactical battles, and we don't have teams hating each other now. And the Klopp and Pep thing, they were respectable and all that, and they liked each other. Screw that garbage. I want to see the Arsene Wenger Mourinho, and Mourinho doesn't shake his hand and he's mad at him, and back, like, managers like hating each other and absolutely, like, going at each other in press conferences. But to focus now just on the game, I think Arsenal played a great game against City, and they should have won. And I think the red card is absolutely unforgivable. That is my opinion on this. I don't know why there's been this like recent uptick in the no tolerance for like kicking the ball away. There was like no statistic. I started looking into it. Like, was there some issue with match wasting and kicking the ball away last season? I didn't really find anything. I don't understand why, of all the rules they could focus on, they've like gone in on this one. At the same time, I listened to what Trossard had to say, and I do agree with him. It seems that he didn't hear the whistle, and he's looking for Martinelli, because that's what you're supposed to do on the counterattack of a corner. And I think the referee has an out to this one, and he just blows his whistle because we're at the minute 46, and he says, Trossard, settle down. You do that again, you're off. Everybody else in City, get out of my face, settle down. Halftime, back to the locker rooms.
Yeah.
And we go have a pure second half, 11 versus 11, great game, and the best team wins. And credit to Arsenal, because, they pulled, and not just park the bus Mourinho. Like, this is like what I liked about it, because Arsene Wenger Arsenal was like, smaller, diminutive players, good on the ball. I'm thinking of like Santi Cazorla, Thomas Rosicky, Theo Walcott, Ozil. Physically, you can overpower them. Now, when you look at Arsenal, everybody's above 6 feet, everybody's strong, and they were absolutely going at City. And like, Doku was getting bullied in the midfield. Bernardo Silva was getting bullied. Even they still played well and they made chances. But this was like really great to watch what Arsenal was doing, because Arteta, I think he was tired of Arsenal being the little brother. And, there's the classic image of Zinchenko getting his ear pulled and doing all that, and the classic Pep of them winning 3-1 and Arsenal so good. They play so well. No, we didn't get that from Pep because he knows he's lucky. He knows that he barely got away with it. And with Rodri out now for the whole season, I don't know about you, I think City's sweating.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot that you said that I want to touch on, so I'm gonna take it piece by piece. Like, I do agree that when I say that Pep ruined football, I think it is this idea that everybody has to play the way that he does, and you nailed it, cogs, and he takes away the individual brilliance of his players sometimes. And to be honest, he probably doesn't want individually brilliant players as much as he wants people who can play a system. I mean, Zlatan said it himself; he didn't want to be one of his schoolboys, right? So I think that's where it gets a bit sterile. And ever since he left Barcelona, that rivalry with him and Mourinho was at a head then, and Mourinho kind of burnt himself out, and he burnt Pep out with how much hatred and animosity there was. And since then, he hasn't really had that. And I agree, like, this game felt it had more stakes than the Liverpool match. And we said it the week before, I think, where I'm like, whenever someone gives you a compliment because of the way you played when you beat them, it's just them saying, like, yeah, we continue to play into our hands of what we want you to do. And Arteta's smarter than that. Like, I think a part of Pep is sweating, or it may be upset, or maybe the Manchester City players are upset because it's like, well, you're supposed to be part of our ideological tree. How could you ever be satisfied with a draw the way that you achieved it? Like, are you kidding me, man? Like, I'm so proud of Arteta, because I think exactly it. Like, Arsenal, I wouldn't say that like they were actually the younger brother syndrome, but that's how it felt like. And so this felt like, no, like, we're our own thing. And Arteta's like, yeah, I can do your little like system, and I'll use that for what I needed to, but I can also do this other thing, and I can be more like a Mourinho and get the result, and I can just be after the results, because like that's the evolution. And we've talked about it when we talk about with other coaches. Like, I'm perfectly fine if you have an ideology and a system and a way you want to play, but if it isn't working in one game, or if you can't do it because, again, let's be clear. I know that Rodri went off injured, and that is a big miss. And I agree with you that it's making Manchester be a little bit more scared about the prospects. They have replacements. They can put Gundogan or Kovacic or Rico Lewis, but it's going to change. Rodri is one of the best. He is the best at his position probably right now, right? And if not, it's very, very close. But Arsenal didn't have Odegaard, and we've talked about how important Odegaard is. So they got this result without their best player, without who I think Arsenal fans would probably consider their best player.
He's their captain.
And they did it their way. So the fact that Bernardo Silva has the cheek to be like, yeah, they didn't play football today. Okay, so they got a point away at like a man down. Like, if City were so good at playing pure football, if you guys were the best team in the world, why didn't you break them down? Why didn't you break them down? You know why you didn't break them down? Because you lack creative players, because Pep doesn't allow them to be creative. You didn't have Kevin De Bruyne, and let me tell you something. We have our own problem with that. We don't have a guy who can pick out those passes that cuts through a defense and maybe covers up some of the creativity issues you're having. Now you don't have that guy. And look how pedestrian you look when your coach, your manager can't find a different way to get the result. Like, it was... Yeah, they created chances, but they didn't really get a clear chance. Like, there was like a couple chances where they had an idea of a shot, and it was the same thing with Inter. Like, to touch on that, like, they looked so flat for most of the game, and then it wasn't until the last 20 minutes where they created anything, and Gundogan headed the ball right at the keeper, basically.
Twice.
Twice. So yeah, I'm proud of Arsenal. I think that the result is more than fair, and City are a bunch of hypocrites, man. Everybody coming out here being like, well, Arsenal, they shit house, they waste time. Yeah, man, they were a man down away to, like,
what are they supposed to do?
It's this dichotomy where somehow everyone unanimously wants to agree that Manchester City are the best team on the planet, and yet other teams aren't allowed to shithouse, aren't allowed to waste time, they aren't allowed to defend. No, you have to meet them on their terms. Play open, expansive football. Let yourself be carved open so Holland can get another goal. Another goal record in the Premier League. Like, what a joke. Like, what are we even talking about? And when it comes to the card, I 100% agree. Trossard was already in the movement of making that pass because he was like, okay, we have a counterattack. This could be like huge. The referee has to use some common sense. And it's a shame. And then I'm not even saying like they should have given Doku a card because I don't think they should have. I think they made the right choice there. But why give a card to this one? Like, it just seems like a weird thing to hyper fixate on. Like, oh, was he timing? Like, it's not like he was kicking. Like, it's not like he kicked the ball away from anybody else out of bounds or anything. He was passing it to his teammate on the break because he didn't hear the whistle.
Yeah, it's Michael Oliver is a good referee, and I think he's like arguably one of the better ones that the English league has. But he had a stinker, in my opinion, in this game, and that's what you hate to see. Like, I forgot who it was, which referee it was, but he was like, I know when I've had a good game, when I'm invisible, when I'm not spoken about. That's how referees should be. Give yellow cards and red cards or penalties, whatever decisions, when it's obviously obvious, but let the game play. And that was like a read the room moment. Like, this is a back and forth affair. Arsenal have City on the ropes. You know, the fans are loving it. Everybody's loving it. Obviously, if it's egregious and he's kicking it at, like, you know, the benches, yeah, sure, then you're just an idiot and you deserve to be sent off for that. But he's just, like you said, he's clearly in the motion of passing it to his teammate. And again, I hate to repeat myself, but I don't understand why he doesn't just blow the whistle. And I've seen it before. Referees blow the whistle, settle down. Hey, calm down. You calm down. Don't do that stupid shit again. You do it again, you're getting carded. Dressing rooms, done. That's it. Yeah. He had an out. It's not like he didn't have an out as well. And that was tough. And absolutely, I think I really agree with your statement that, you know, like when teams say that, you know, when you play City, you have to play expansive football. Why? To play the way that they want, to play the way that Pep wants. Again, so good, so good, very good. I respect. No, there's a reason why Real Madrid has owned City in the Champions League, because Carlo Ancelotti, who is not a system manager, but I think he really has one of the highest IQs in tactics and understanding of system. He realizes that if they go and play expensive football against City, they are going to get torn apart, because you got a 30-something-year-old Carvajal at right back and Mendy at left back, who isn't the best, most defensively sound. And you've got, like, you know, Chouameni and some young players in midfield who, you know, are great, but might not be able to compete toe-to-toe with the experienced players that, like, City has. So he understands that you take your individual creativity and you use the strengths of, for example, Rudiger having Holland in his back pocket. You rely on a strong center-back pairing, and then you take individual creative moments. And that's when you have a brilliant comeback like Real Madrid has a few years ago. And you have amazing moments like the Rodrigo headers. Those are like the moments that we miss in the Premier League from these absolute rivalries. And, you know, you miss the Keane versus Vieira in the tunnel and them actually just going back at each other and hating each other. And I'm not saying it has to go back to the Premier League where you could basically take off someone's foot and just get like a no, bad, don't do that. like you know, yes, obviously, like, refereeing has gotten stricter, and for good as well, because players would get injured and careers were shorter. But like when you look at Keane and Vieira now, they respect each other so much because they realize that they're both winners and they're both killers. Yeah. And they have each other in the best Premier League teams, both of them, same team. So when Arsenal goes and they realize, okay, we are a man down, but, you know, Arteta said is that we're not just going to sit back. Yes, we did sit back, but we're going to be the most annoying and, like, classic Mourinho, Inter Milan, like, esque, like, you know, just get in them, elbows, dig deep, tackles, make them feel you on every physical, like, battle. He realizes that his players are physical and they can compete against City, and they do well. And again, like, yeah, like this arrogance from City. I get it. You've won the Premier League 4 times, but again, like, what has the state of the Premier League been ever since Pep has gone into it? It's all basically become a farmers' league. If it wasn't for Klopp and Liverpool, where would it really be right now? The level of competition was so much worse when you dropped off from the first 2 teams.
For sure.
And then Holland at the end of the game, I'm not sure if you saw it when he goes up to Arteta. Oh, stay humble, stay humble,
stay humble.
What?
But you know what? You know what? That I hated less than anything. Like, I like that Holland is talking shit because I can get behind that. I can get behind someone being like, oh, like, stay in your place. You haven't won anything yet. Sure. Yeah. And if Silva and Stones and whoever else came out and were like, well, they haven't won anything, like a draw is just sure. But that's not like I want to give the full quotes. I pulled them up. We didn't talk about Stones, but what Stones says, I don't know if they have mastered it. They've done it for a few years, and we know to expect that. You can call it clever or dirty, whichever way you want to put it. They break up the game, and it upsets the rhythm for everyone. I thought we dealt with it really well. It's not easy when things are happening. You're trying to gain momentum, trying to get a foot in the game and get above them. These little stoppages, stop that. So again, like trying to be like, oh, they're dirty. Like, give me a break. And then Silva's full quote. There was only one team that came to play football. The other came to play to the limits of what was possible to do and allowed by the referee. The second goal was already their usual block to our keeper, allowed by the referee, and then the referee allowed a sequence of time-wasting events. Asked about the difference between City's battles with Liverpool and their newest rivalry with Arsenal. Maybe that Liverpool have already won a Premier League and Arsenal haven't. Liverpool won a Champions League, Arsenal haven't. Liverpool always faced us face-to-face and tried to win games. Like, those quotes are such, like, just like baby whining. Like, to say that the second goal was because they blocked your keeper. No, the second goal was that Kyle Walker lost Gabriel. Like,
thank you.
Yes. That's what happened. Kyle Walker, as pacey as he is and athletic as he is, he's getting older, and someone who's bigger and stronger and can just rise up got the best of him. And it wouldn't happen the play directly before that, like in the last set piece, but you got lucky. So, like,
I'll let you keep going, but quickly on this, like, he's like, but same thing, like for all the tactically, like, crazy systems that Pep comes up with, Doku and Kyle Walker on Gabriel. Did you not watch the past few games? Did you not see how high he jumps? And they're both doing the exact same thing. Like, I had to look at it for a second to be like, wait, is that Doku? No, it's Walker. Just little jab, little jab, little jab. No, goal. Yeah. And then Kyle Walker starts having some existential crisis. I don't know if you saw it. They go on him for game. The camera goes on him. It was my fault. It was my fault. He's just repeating it. We know it's your fault, buddy. You don't need to, like. We know. Mark better next time. Don't jab him. Anyway, go ahead.
It was quite literally caught on camera, Kyle Walker. Yeah. We know that it's your fault. No, but those comments from Bernardo Silva, like, I'm not surprised that he's been linked to Barcelona. Like, that's the same kind of crying that they do over there. Like, continue to cry. Maybe that's his audition. He's like, I can whine about stuff that doesn't matter. Like, to say that Arsenal didn't try to win, they were up 2-1 going into the half, and the only reason they went so defensive is because of that yellow card. Would they have still probably gone a bit more defensive had that card not happened? Absolutely. They still would have tried to, like, slow the game down, but they would have offered a bit more in attack just purely based off having 11 on 11. I want to know, like, this is where the hypocrisy comes in. And if people want to say, well, like, Arteta has complained about teams time wasting and all that, like, sure, everyone does. But what I don't like about Pep and the way that his players do it, they act as if they were above it. They act as if these things are not a part of football heritage. Sorry to sound like Mourinho, but that is literally what it is. If you're watching the game and your team has a lead and they're on the break, sometimes you don't even want them to go for goal if there's no clear chance. Go to the corner flag and waste time. You don't want your keeper to, like, to get the ball and immediately kick it back into play. Take your time, survey the field, make sure, like, these are things that you're taught to do from when you're a kid until you're a grown up, and that's how you experience the game. Like, this isn't EAFC or, like, FIFA. Like, we're not, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'll do whatever it takes to win. And maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's why I can't be a Pep Guardiola fan and a Barcelona fan. I'm not good enough at crying, and I'm not good enough at accepting a loss. Like, I'm not so ideologically stuck in my ways that I can't acknowledge that there's different ways to play this game. And because to me, those comments are insane.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I always hate that when teams come out and one team didn't play football. So defending is not part of football. Thierry Henry said it last year when Real Madrid were in the Champions League winning games. Defending is a part of football. You have to realize that certain teams like will play defensive against you because counterattacking is a thing. Because taking set piece chances is a thing. And again, credit to Arteta, because I'm not really seeing this from Pep or other coaches, for example. Arteta realizes what he is good at in terms of, copy and pasting the Pep system to simplify it. But he realizes I'm not the best at set pieces. So he brings in some genius of a set piece coach. And how many set pieces and corners have Arsenal scored already? How many beautiful crosses has Saka gave in? And it's almost become a goal. He's realizing the strengths of his team. He's saying, okay, we can't just be diminutive players who are good on the ball and keep possession all the time. We have to be both. We have to be strong, physical, especially in the Premier League, tall as well, and good on the ball. So if we do go a man down, for example, I can do shithousery football and, classic just Mourinho and parking the bus and being just an absolute thorn in anybody's side, because that's how you win games when you're down. And again, just like you said, wasting time is part of the game. And this is why, I hear the argument when some people say VAR is unnecessary. I hear it because sometimes it's those decisions of players wasting time, or, the tackles that wouldn't get called, or the penalties that wouldn't get called. Yes, sometimes teams would suffer injustices or something like that, but that was sometimes the pureness of football and the banter that you'd get back and forth and be like, oh, but you wasted time and we don't know how much time was left and your keeper laid on the ball and you kicked the ball away and you can't do that. And, the player was tackled and it should have been a yellow. It should have been a red. Oh, was he offside by an inch? It's those things we're kind of missing out now, because now when you score a goal in VAR, it's wait, is it? Okay, yeah, we're good. Hey, I don't like that, But another part I want to focus on is that we haven't really touched on is Rodri's now out. He left the match and he's injured basically what looks like for the whole season. Looks like he tore his cruciate. Big loss for City. You said it earlier. I think he is the best center defensive mid in the world. I don't really know anybody else who comes up with him. I think if Vinny doesn't win the Ballon d'Or, it's probably going to Rodri. I actually think Rodri probably wins it. Is this a popularity contest? But I looked up a stat, and this was interesting to me.
People are gonna love this episode. People,
yeah. No, it is. Even pundits say it themselves.
It absolutely is.
All the what's FIFA has their Ballon d'Or, and they give it to Messi for 14 straight years or whatever. Or what's his name? Lewandowski should have won it twice or something like that, but we just give it to Messi because he's the poster boy for FIFA. And then UEFA just says, you know what, we're just going to make our own, the best in the world. It's just a popularity contest. You know who the best player in the world is each year. But I looked up a stat, and this was very interesting to me. City with Rodri in the team wins 74% of the time. I'm rounding. Without Rodri, it's 64% of the time. Now, that's not they are absolutely awful without him. Yes, you're winning more than half of your games. But 10% drop, in my opinion, I don't know what you think, I'm reading too into it, in a league where Arsenal was 2 points behind last season, a 10% drop without your metronome in the team and your arguably most important or best player, I think that's a lot for City. And this I don't know if this is bad luck or irony or whatever, because he had just come out and he was we're close to a protest and, there's way too many games. We can't be playing like this. A little bit of City whining again, a little bit of, crybaby attitude. I feel you're getting paid to play, make millions of dollars. There's a lot of games. I hear both sides of the argument anyway, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this could be a huge catalyst?
I do. I will say, when it comes to games, I think Rodri's right that there are too many games, and I do think that stuff like the expanded Club World Cup is unnecessary, and even the expansion to the Nations League to the degree that it's been. There's a lot of things that have overloaded the calendar, but I respect him for being so committed to the cause of a union and labor that he on purpose tore his ACL just to prove a point. So, that's awesome. Way to go down for the cause. In all seriousness, I do hope he is healthy, because he is the best CDM in the world and he's a great player. In terms of what I think it'll do for the title race, I agree with you. I do think a part of it, and this is where, again, I'll criticize Pep Guardiola, as is my desire and my want. I have a platform and a podcast. If you don't like it, make your own podcast and defend Pep Guardiola from everything I say. You're
going to love the episode.
like Rodri's been so available for Manchester City that they haven't really had to devise how to play without him. There's no one-for-one player. Like if you were just going to keep the exact same roles and systems, you put Kovacic in there, I guess, and just allow him to interpret that the way he does. What I think will probably happen is he's going to put Gundogan or Rico Lewis or someone, and it'll be slightly different to what we've seen, and maybe the responsibilities will be shared a bit more. I still think City are talented enough to win the Premier League. I think this draw is massive, though, and the fact that Arsenal was able to draw blood without Odegaard is huge and shows just how dangerous they are. And then you add to the fact that they won't have Rodri for the return. It's gonna be tough. If I was gonna say a percentage on it going into the season, I would say I was feeling like Man City was gonna win like 85 to 90%. And very much like this injury on the stats you gave, now I'm down to like a 70 to 75. Like it's knocked it down like 10 to 15% for me, purely based off the fact that even if there's replacements in the squad, even if you can find a new idea, but I do think that given the time, he will scheme a way to make this loss less felt. He's a good enough manager and a good enough coach, obviously, to do that. But they lose a little bit of something. They lose this metronome, like you said. They lose someone that really does the hard work. They lose somebody who is such a great defensive shield. Like his impact is going to be felt because he might be the toughest player left on that squad. And now, who's besides Erling Haaland, who is really tough just because he's like a giant, they don't really have a backbone. Like I think they're soft now, softer than they were before. Yeah, they have a bunch of crybabies without him. Like I don't know. I do think Arsenal have a chance, a better chance than they did before he went down injured. And you never want to celebrate an injury, and I'm sure Arsenal fans are not celebrating out loud, but deep inside they're like, yes, okay, we got it. They don't want to say it just yet. And honestly, do you know what I think it makes even more likely? My predictions. I think that now more than ever, City's going to struggle in the Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the spine is a very good mention because I'm looking at the team that lined up on Sunday against Arsenal. Yeah, I agree with you. Like Holland is by far like the strongest and most like willed player there. I do think that like DS and Akanji are do have a bit of a backbone as well. But yeah, aside from that, like no, I don't really see anyone who's like who has that backbone and that strength in there. And another big thing that I think that has to come out of this is that Kevin De Bruyne is going to have to be available a lot.
Yeah.
And his recent track record in injuries, especially as he's gotten older, he has not been there. There's always some nagging injury and stuff going on. And he's starting to get like, with it's a different like dichotomy, but with Belgium, he's very frustrated. And you can realize it because the Belgian team isn't what they were anymore, and he's very frustrated with the lack of quality there. But I also do wonder if that's someone who's realizing that he doesn't have a lot of time left, and he does get injured a lot more than he used to. So he's complaining more because he wants to win and play as much as he can. I think that might be like a bit of a nagging thing there that he has with them. But he's going to have to be available a lot, and the signing of Gundogan looks even more important as well because wow, if they didn't get him, then they'd be in huge trouble. I do agree with you that Kovacic probably is the one that slots in, or if he tries to do like a Rico Lewis thing, which would be tough on the kid, even though he's done well. But I'm not sure what they are going to do to like at the immediate. Do you think they go into the transfer window? I doubt it with the case like
with all the charges and stuff, I'd find it very hard. But it'll depend on De Bruyne's fitness. That's one thing I hadn't considered, but when you mention it, 100%. If he's fit and he's available and they can bank on his health a little more, then they don't really need to dip into the transfer window. If he's not fit, if he starts missing games, like I think when he misses, you can already see just how much less effective Haaland is, and then you take him out, and it's like it starts to get really thin. We haven't mentioned Mateus Nunes. He's also an option. I don't think they dip into the transfer window though. I think with all the charges and everything, they're just gonna have to find one of the other players that they have on their bench to try to do a job.
Yeah, that's another thing because the big reason that I thought that if City do lose the league, it's stuff that happens like off the field, so like stuff you can't control. Like now, first there's the case with the 115 charges that's looming over their head, and then now they have the Rodri injury that's also looming over their head as well, and then you possibly going to have like De Bruyne in and out of the squad. So I think like those frustrations, especially with like how good Arsenal played, I think those could like really pepper at the title, and there could be a point deduction. We haven't even talked about that. Like there could be a possible point deduction. We don't know. It's probably not happening. Wishful thinking. But I want to just get your opinion quickly. How do you think Arsenal fans should feel? Because I do follow a couple on like YouTube, and I was watching their reactions on this, and one of them said an interesting thing. He was like, before the game, if you give me a 2-2 draw without Odegaard, he's like, I'll bite your hand off for that against like City, given their past recent results have went. But he's like, the fact that we lost in the 99th minute, he's like, it felt like we lost 5-0. I'm paraphrasing from what I heard.
Yeah.
How do you think they should feel like after this game?
I fully understand that. And since I'm not a fan, it's easy for me to divorce that emotion from it. What I will say is if I was in Arsenal's position, let's say this is Real Madrid versus Barcelona in the top of the table clash, kind of how it might shape up to be in October, and we're up 2-1 and a controversial decision goes against us and we're holding on, and then the last action of the game they score, it would feel like a loss. Like it would feel like, oh, like we let one slip. And I understand that, like just raw emotion. But when you look at the facts, like just look at the match stats. In the second, overall, City had 11 shots on target. Not that they were all good, but they had 11 shots on target. Arsenal only had 3, and they scored 2 of them. City had 78% possession. Arsenal had 22. City had 91 pass accuracy. They only had 71. City had 8 corners. Arsenal only had 2. So it was clear that it was all one-way traffic. I think you should be happy because all this means is even with 10 men, Arteta's defensive system and those players are so locked in defensively that they can frustrate this team that everyone says is the best. So, like, if people think I come off too harsh on Pep and on City, fair. You can have that opinion. But the reason I do it is because every piece of football content that I see out there constantly goes on about how smart he is and how good Manchester City are. Everyone says they're the best team in the world. They say, even when they lose, people still say, well, they probably shouldn't have lost, and they're still the best team in the world. Madrid have beaten them twice in the Champions League in pretty heroic fashion, and no one said, well, Madrid are the better team now. No, they say, Madrid were lucky, margins, blah, blah. Okay, so if we're going to operate off that base assumption, Arsenal just frustrated the best team in the world to this degree. To me, that means Arsenal are the best defensive team on the planet. So if I'm an Arsenal fan, when we're going to be at home and we can have our home crowd there and we'll hopefully have Odegaard and Rice and we won't go a man down and we'll be healthy and they'll be missing Rodri, I would count that a win. Like I'll bite your hand off for this draw because unlike other years, and you touched on it, so I'll go on your point as my last point, and then you can give your perspective on all this. Arsenal are no longer the little brother. They are an equal rival to Manchester City, and you can see it because of the comments. Silva has not made comments this strong before. Stones wouldn't have been whining this much before. All of these people would not have whined as much in years past because they didn't see Arsenal as a threat. They see you as a threat now. They know that Rodri's a big miss. I would feel thrilled.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It wasn't like an injustice in my opinion for the red card. That is absolutely right. I do. When I look at the corner, like the set piece that they won on, I was surprised, I guess, because they were playing a man down. I guess they were just trying to be as compact as possible. I was surprised how much space Grealish did get to just keep going forward, and that basically led into the shot or cross and whatever and all the stuff going on. But absolutely, given the way the results have gone past few seasons, and given the way this game should get, I think Arsenal fans should absolutely be happy. And February 1st, circle that on your calendar because we're going to the Emirates. Hopefully everybody's fit. Hopefully there's no stupid red cards, just like we talked about. We know Rodri's not going to be there, but I've been impressed by Arsenal, and I've been impressed especially by someone like Kai Havertz, who's slotted in as center forward and striker, who's played in the midfield, and he has really performed, and Arteta has elevated his game. And I think if everybody's there for Arsenal, like the way that they should be, like I know Odegaard, we're not really sure how long he's going to be out. It could be long term as well, with like similar to Rodri, but absolutely, like this could be a huge game there. And yes, like the fact that City, like Arsenal, quote unquote, dropped 2 points, and this could be something because it's those very small margins, which unfortunately, again, which is what like Pep's football and City football has done to the Premier League, where it's like if you're not perfect, it's just there's no chance. And the only counter argument I hear to this, because I was listening to a debate on another English podcast, it was the other guy was saying, he was like, City hit their form January to April, like March, and as long as Erling Haaland is there, and as long as he is healthy, and he hit 100 goals on Sunday, he's like, and that could be the reason why City still stay over the line. And he could be the one to push them over it. I think that does still have to come with Kevin De Bruyne being healthy and them finding a replacement for Rodri in that midfield. But I think this is much closer than a lot of people think. And I think Arsenal fans should absolutely hold their head up high because they played a great game. And I think everybody should be watching a lot more Arsenal games now if you haven't, because they are absolutely not the younger stepbrother anymore. And we know it. Like we've seen it in other sports as well. We've seen it in basketball. We've seen it in fighting. When that top gun or when that top team starts complaining about another team, there you go. You just open the door. Pandora's box is now open, and now you know that you're in. And Arsenal are there now. Yeah, they're coming. It's gonna be fun. It's going to be interesting.
For sure. We went super long. We're at 57 minutes. I'll give you a chance. Did you have anything else to say, or you think we've touched on everything that we needed to?
No, I think we did. I think we bashed Peps enough in ruining football. I think we touched on the game. It was a deep dive, just like you mentioned. We're going to talk about these if there's any big games, big clashes, semifinals, finals, and stuff like that. El Clásicos. Yeah. We hope you enjoyed it. It was good to talk about.
No, for sure. And obviously, yeah, if you enjoyed it, please let us know if you watch. I'm sure if you're a Manchester City fan, you might not get through this one, but there's only like 10 of you anyway, so I'm not too sad. But no, seriously, do give feedback if you like. If you don't like what you think we should talk about, we'll take that on board as much as we can. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make a preview for the Prem one this weekend. I think it'll depend on our schedules. Looking at the games real quick, there's not a tie where I'm like, oh, we'd have to talk about that. Like City and Newcastle, pretty big. Chelsea, Brighton, okay. Tottenham, United. A lot of teams are playing teams that you would think that they should beat or not. Like the most in the balance, I think, is Spurs, United. But if we do a preview, we'll talk about it. If not, we'll talk about the fallout of those storylines and hopefully preview some of the Champions League games that are going to be up next week. I want to echo what Cheyenne said about Arsenal. You should definitely be watching them, and hopefully Arsenal fans will enjoy this podcast more than Manchester City fans. We want to thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, comment, follow us on socials, and all that stuff, because we like making this content. We want you guys to like what we're doing, and we're going to keep doing it anyway, so might as well come along for the ride. From myself and Cheyenne here at TouchLine Banter, I want to say take care, thank you for watching, and enjoy this weekend's footy.